Of course, as you start your testing activities and development activities, you will figure out that some of the estimates you gave in the beginning might not be very correct, right? Or precise or accurate, just because it's not your fault. No guilt trips whatsoever, right? It's just because you never had any experience with Agile. This is a new project, new technology, and some people, they try to be very conservative in first few sprints, which is a reasonable approach. Try not to overestimate your capacity. Try to be conservative, because it is always better to finish sprint earlier than to be late with your sprint. However, if it happens that you tried hard and you did very good planning in the beginning, and still your first sprint didn't go well for whatever reason, the technology might be wrong, the database didn't scale properly, you tried to implement the web interfaces using Flash technology, and then it got stuck somewhere because the license for the Flash, getting the license took like 3 days, so everyone was delayed. You can have various reasons for that. So you do not panic. What you do instead, you just, okay, where do we? Okay, no, so, yeah, so you just do the retrospective meeting. So I have the slides down the line. But anyway, so when you plan your sprint, you try from the product backlog that you have, let's say for this house painting project, you try to pick what makes sense, what you can do within one sprint. If you have some experience in Agile, you are likely to have more precise estimates for your development. You do not need to bucketize into small, medium, and large. Instead, you can just have the effort that it takes to develop and test. And this may come from experience, or what some people do in Agile development. And this is actually a general rule for any project, not only software development. The rule of thumb is that unless you can break down your effort, which means features, down to smaller chunks, and the chunks that you have are more than 4 hours in duration, you cannot do precise estimates, which means you have to keep breaking your features down, right? Because when you have a large feature, you do not know how to quantify the effort. It applies to both development and QA. So what you can do, let's say you have feature A, and this feature is a large one. And you sit there with development and thinking, oh, will it take us like 2 weeks to develop and test? Or will it take us to 3 weeks to develop and test? We have no clue. If you are puzzled, if you cannot even provide those bucketized estimates, what you do, you break your feature down. Because if you look at any complex feature, it can always be broken into smaller tasks, right? Even in house painting, you can always break down your house painting job, right? You can break it down to ceilings, floors, walls. Then you can run some pilot experimenting, paint like 5 square feet of your wall and see how long it takes you. And here, what you can do, you can break your master task for this feature to smaller feature. Let's say A1, A2, A3. And then development and QA will try to project how long it will take to develop and test each of those sub-features. Chances are you may not be able to reasonably project. What you do then, you break it down to A11, A12, A21, A22, A23, and this may be A31, A32, so forth, A37. See, you're breaking down the features to smaller pieces until each piece to which you broke down takes you no more than half day or 4 hours. In people's experience in the industry, if you do this, your estimates will be true and correct. If your estimates are not going down to that level, then you may miss first few sprints unless you break down your features. And teams who do Scrum and who do Agile for a long periods of time, they become very proficient and good in estimating, the feature complexity and the duration of effort and its own, agility for the team. And different teams have different agility. It depends on the experience of the developers and testers. It depends on the communication level. The higher experienced people you have, the more productive the team can be. However, you also should have good communications, because a lot of software errors and missing requirements happen from miscommunications. So you have to communicate effectively in a Scrum team to achieve the results that you want. So basically, bucketization of your features into small, medium, large is one way of projecting your estimates and time estimates, and this is another way. You break down complex features into smaller pieces until you have a good handle on how long it takes for each sub-features to develop, and then of course you sum everything up. And then you have the total number of man days for this major feature. So what I have on those slides are these numbers, is that effort. This is the analogy of that effort that would come from all the sub-features in one big one. So this is number of days and days. This is what would go into that post-it with the feature name in the real Scrum project. Any questions on effort planning? Okay. Now, you may have the product backlog outlined right there on the wall. Out of that set of features, you need to pick something for the sprint. This is what we just did with the house painting project. So same would be done with the product backlog. Out of, I never counted my post-its, by the way. But anyway, out of all these post-its, let's say, if we are to do the first sprint, we would pick the first few, which have the highest priority, right? And we would say, okay, we want this to go into our first sprint. Because this list already prioritized, we can make our life easier and say, okay, we just count. We know that in the first sprint, we will have, let's say, 7 work units that we can finish. And work unit may be 1 day, 2 days, right? So if those are 7 work units, and each digit is 1 work unit, so then how much you can do? How much you can do, Michael? So 7 work units, right? So you can do 1, and then 2, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So your sprint would end up here. See? You can do only 7 work units. That means this is how much you can do in your first sprint. And by the way, once you define your sprint scope, that set of features that goes into sprint is called sprint backlog. So the overall set of post-its is your product backlog. The set of features that goes into this sprint, this sprint that you are working on, is called sprint backlog. Once you start your sprint, you need to track the progress. And how do we track the progress? We use this beautiful tool called Burndown Chart, which is a very simple, and I have this beautiful tool there on the wall. So all it takes you is a piece of paper, which is large enough so you can see it from the far, and everyone should be able to see it. And what you do on that chart, on a daily basis, you come, and this Burndown chart has 2 axes. So the vertical numbers is your work units. It can be days, it can be weeks, but of course usually people do days. So these are your work units, and this is your time. So basically, let me just move this for a second. Okay. For our class, what I did, I put hours here. We started at 7 p.m., right? And I did a breakdown for 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10, and 11. We'll see how much we would be able to accomplish based on our class backlog. So we started at 7 p.m., 7:10, but anyway, let's say 7, with 51 units of work. What time is it now? 8:30. 8:30? Okay, so we are right here, right, with 8:30. So let's see how much we were able to accomplish.
It's 22 units anyway.
No, it cannot be 22 because we have exercise which is 25. You mean 25 22 post-its? Oh, that's fine. But what we are counting, we are not counting the post-its. We are counting the units. Each post-it has different weight, right? This is how people estimate the effort. Okay. Okay, Scrum General, covered. Sprint definition, covered. Sprint backlog, covered. Sprint planning, covered. Okay, so this is covered. This is covered. Okay. Scrum team, right? We went through this. Scrum team is done. What?
Agile model.
Yeah. Okay. Burndown chart, we're still on this topic. We haven't finished yet. What? Scrum sprint, yeah, one more. Can you please pull it for me? Thank you. Okay.
Sprint terminology?
We are not done yet. We are still going through it, right? So we are not finished.
Sprint review?
No, we haven't even started for the sprint review. Okay. So 1, 2, plus 5, 7. Plus 3, 8, 9, 10, 11.
No. 7 plus 3 is 10. 7 plus 3 is 10.
What did I say? No, and then there was one more. 11. Okay, I will recount. 1 and 1. 2. Beautiful. Plus 5.
7.
Plus 3.
10.
10. Plus 1.
11.
Plus 1.
12.
Plus 1.
13.
Plus 1.
14.
Plus 4.
18.
18. 40. No. What did you say?
18.
18, right? 14 plus 4. Okay. Don't confuse me. I'm confused enough with my work. So by 8:30, we are done with 18 units of work. So 51 minus 18. Another challenge for you guys at this hour?
31.
33.
33. Right? 33. So 33 is 51 minus 18 is 33, right?
Yes.
Everyone agrees? Okay, good. Okay, this is 32 and a half. Okay. This is the burn chart for this team in this class. So when you do Scrum, and actually any agile process follows some kind of this metric, Burndown chart. So there are no standards on how these charts should look like. So these charts are individual per sprint, per team, per software product, right? So this chart applies to us being here today doing this class, right? So with different classes, I had different pace because, the questions would come and I would, switch topics and go back and forth. So with you guys, what do you think? Can we finish our class by 11 and cover all the topics? Looking at the trend.
We should.
No, looking at the trend, right? This is, if you continue with that, we should finish. Okay, let's try. We should finish our class exactly by 10:50, right? So I cannot guarantee you that we'll finish by 10:50, but we'll try. At least this is the trend as of this moment, right? As of 8:30. And then we'll have these checks frequently, maybe like every half an hour, maybe an hour. And if I forget, please remind me. So you can see how this chart is built. When real life comes in and real team works on real projects. What?
They need a break.
Wait for 10 more minutes, okay? 15 more minutes. So let's finish the Burndown charts. You may see very different charts in real life. So, and by looking at these charts, tell me what you think about these projects and what should or should not be done. So if this is your chart and this is the end of your sprint, right? And this is your maximum effort, the number of work units that you have. If you have a chart like this, what can you say about this chart? It's idle. Not too much work is being done. Why could this happen?
It could be very difficult task, and it needs to be lots of time spent on prioritizing something, on thinking, brainstorming, and then it will be done everything like in the quick time?
Not exactly, because you need to prioritize and pick your sprint backlog before you start your sprint, right? So that's the point. You need to know what you are developing, so you don't spend time here in discussing what should go into the sprint. So you already have this feature set. So what else may be the reason?
Vacation.
What?
Vacation.
Vacation. Yeah, everyone went for vacation. So why did we even start the sprint? Good reason. What else?
Awaiting supplies needed.
Yeah. So you may not have the hardware delivered in time. You may not have the licenses, for whatever software you need coming in time, or you may be just technically stuck, right? You try to develop something and it's not coming out the way you want it, which means if it does not satisfy the requirement, it's not considered to be delivered. So, which means we are not making any progress. However, if we see the burn chart like that, and those are days, right? So on a daily basis, we will have checkups, and I'll tell you how those checkups are done and how they are called, and they're called daily stand-ups. So every day, people would check on the progress with each other. So the Scrum team would meet every morning, same time, same place, and talk about the progress everyone is making. So if as a team, let's say 1 week passed, we have 4 week sprint, right? 1 week passed, and we have this trend. Should we get worried? Yes, we should. And what we should do next? No, we meet every day, right? So we meet anyway. So we should understand why we have this trend. It may be vacation, lack of hardware, software, we are stuck technologically.
Or change Scrum Master.
Yeah, maybe the Scrum Master is not doing the right job, right? Or maybe everyone, development and testers, are working on a very complex task, and we cannot call it done because we are not done yet. But we trust each other, and if on a daily meeting people tell you, yes, we are progressing well, and as soon as we are done with this task, let's say on week 2, we'll be done with most of it, then it is still okay to have this trend. But again, this is where the honesty and trust and commitment and reliability come into play. This is why you cannot be successful in Agile unless you have these qualities in the team. Your team should be efficient, and again, if you are late for whatever reason with your tasks, communicate. If this is not the case, if we are stuck and technology we chose is not doing the right job, or the database we chose is not scaling well, or for example, we are supposed to support our product on Windows 8, which is now coming out, and nobody knows what the quality of that product will be, but still, we got the FC version of it, a beta version, and we tried, and it failed miserably, right, our software. That means we are not making good progress. What choices do we have?
Drop.
Do what?
Drop the product.
No, drop the product is not the right answer. However, you can drop your sprint. You can terminate your sprint. If you are stuck for objective reason, one more reason for us being stuck because the feature is too complex, and then at some point the product owner comes and says, you know what, this feature is no longer needed, right? In which case you can terminate your sprint. Sigh with the relief and say, oh, good, we were not successful anyway, and this feature is needed. So you can terminate your sprint, and if you terminate your sprint, you would know the reason, right? Because you are meeting daily, you know who is doing what. The team is, breathing on each other's necks. So you know why you terminated the sprint. What you need to do, of course you can go hysterical and cry and beat your head against the wall. It does not help. Instead, you reasonably analyze. You do a retrospective meeting, and we'll go through the details how those meetings are done. You go through the retrospective analysis of what went wrong, what went right, and you just move forward to the next sprint, right? Hopefully applying the lessons you learned in the previous sprint, especially if it was abnormally terminated. So what if you see this Burndown chart? What can you tell?
They had to redo something.
This chart does make sense. It means that the work was done and tested, and then we realized we did not develop what needed to be developed. So we had to redo stuff. At some point, this item went back to the work to be done bucket. From the done bucket, it moved to the to do bucket. So which means, again, the work units went up, and then again down, and then we again realized, oops, we misdeveloped again, right? Something doesn't work properly, so it went back to the bucket. But as long as at the end you can arrive to your sprint completion, you are still okay. That's why it is very important when, at this moment of time when you have a checkup with the team, it is very important to analyze and understand why this is happening and whether or not we have the capacity to accommodate the changes that we are making, right? So what if you see the trend, like this is your sprint end, and your Burndown chart looks like this. What does it mean? Yeah, that means we finished early, right? And probably when we planned the effort, we overestimated. But again, it is better than the trend that looks like this, right? Because if your trend looks like this, you will not finish your sprint.
Can you add more features, or is it set
No.
in stone and set?
Sprint backlog is set in stone once you started. If mid-flight, let's say at this point, the product owner, runs into the room and says, guys, we just had a customer forum. Forget all the features we were developing. We are doing a completely new product. You do not try to turn, the wheels around in the middle of the sprint. You drop the sprint, you terminate it. You have the backlog, product backlog outlined. You plan again, and you start the process all over again. Even if you want to add or remove a couple of features, you cannot do it within the sprint. That's the whole idea. Because if people will come to you and say, okay, now drop this, develop this, you've already started. So then the churn on development and tester side is too much, and people will not be able to deliver. So once the sprint is defined in scope, it's written in stone. You either do it or you don't do it. That's a different story. So yeah, and what happens if, so if you have to drop or modify the feature set for the sprint mid-flight, you terminate your sprint and you start another sprint, which is a doable thing. And people, they do it in the field. I mean, this is what market requires. Why do you need to develop a feature which is no longer needed?
And if it is a Facebook story, when he was kind of broke the trust, and he was working on his project, the Mark Zuckerberg, and it is like they failed the whole project.
You mean the Facebook was called the failed project?
It is Facebook. He developed the Facebook in the time when he actually said that he will develop for the Harvard students.
But it depends. It depends because so your question is that it was.
What should have they done?
Yeah.
Like when they actually, instead of trusting him, like they should actually drop this and find another engineer, or.
No, it all depends because remember the agile development, there is no standards on how you should behave. It is recommended that you trust your team, and if collectively the team decides not to continue with the sprint, then this development terminates, you start another sprint. You are talking about the entire project, whether it should be killed or not. That's a longer story because then you need to reevaluate all the product backlog and see if at least some of the features make sense. If you cannot deliver all of it, can you deliver some of it? If you can deliver some of it, should it be this team or that team? So it's a little different story.
And if you don't trust one person, should you actually let
Good
them
question.
go?
So the question is if during a couple of sprints or even one sprint, the person lied to the team, right? Should you take this person to the second sprint?
No.
It's a trick question. Should you?
It depends.
No. The answer is no. You should not take a person who broke the trust. You should not take, ideally, unless you don't have anyone else and you need, But what happens if person misbehaves, if he is dishonest, and because of that the entire team suffers because you cannot deliver your deliverables at the end? What is the point of keeping this person? You can probably monitor that person, closely and micromanage that guy or lady and finally get some results from this person, but the amount of effort you will spend on micromanaging that person will decrease the time you can spend on the actual development. So the point of having this person in the team, I mean, it's questionable. And in my experience, you break the trust, you're out of the team. So before we start a sprint, we would have a sprint planning meeting. So in this sprint planning meeting, again, it should be held every 7 to 28 days. It means it depends on the duration of your sprint, right? If your sprint is 1 week, which is 7 calendar days, so 5 business days, then you would have this meeting every week. If it is if your sprint is 4 weeks, then you would have those meetings, on a monthly basis. And what happens in the sprint planning meeting? You would define the scope of your sprint. So basically, you would need to define the sprint backlog for this particular sprint. And as I said, you would need to do this planning and estimating for the features, so we can understand how much work is likely to be done during the current sprint. And the limit for this meeting is 8 hours. So you should not, as a team, you should not spend more than 8 hours for this planning, even though, as you can imagine, if you have too many features and all of them have highest priority, and the product owner wants all of them to be implemented, it may take a while to have this discussion and dance with the post-its with the product owner, right? Because at some point the product owner will align your features this way, and then you understand that logistically, for example, this sprint retrospective cannot be done unless everything else is done, right? Maybe we can do this retrospective analysis after we are done with all of the logistics and before we come to a conclusion of our class. What else is out of order? Let's see. Sprint review, sprint on-site, daily stand-ups, okay, limitations. Yeah, again, the limitations are at the end, I think. Okay, these two are aligned well. You cannot do exercise overview before you did the exercise. So you guys will do the exercise and then we'll go through the review. Exercise demo, again, should be aligned with the exercise overview. Who? No. On the demo, you show the results of your exercise. So you cannot do it vice versa, right? And in the sprint, in the course of the sprint, you first do all of your development and testing, and then at the end of the sprint, you demo your work to yourself, to the same team. It's not like you have to demo to the outside world or to the customers. You have a demo for yourself to understand as a team whether you guys did what you wanted to do or you didn't. And again, the sprint planning meeting has a limit of 8 hours. Once the sprint is done, right, once all the work is done, all the development and testing for the features that we wanted to develop is done, we should have a review meeting. So what is done on that review meeting? We review the work that was completed, and we present the completed work, and this is what the demo is about, right? So you have to demo the features to yourself to see whether you achieved your goals for the sprint, and this is very important, incomplete work cannot be demonstrated. So you cannot have a demo. This is the rule of Agile and the rule of Scrum. You cannot demonstrate incomplete work and say, yeah, I know we kind of messed up, but let's still consider this sprint successful, even if out of 5 features we did 4.5, right? This is not how sprint is done. You either do all of it or your sprint fails. And we'll talk about what to do with failed sprints and the remaining, sprint features which did not get developed a little later. So the limit for this sprint review meeting is 4 hours. So you should not spend more than 4 hours for the demo and the discussion. And you can also have the sprint retrospective. If demo took you 4 hours and you did not have time to do the retrospective analysis, you may allocate another like 2-3 hours to do the retrospective. So this is the meeting where all team members provide their opinions on the sprint that was just finished. And the goal of this is not to finger point to people who did not do very well or to the task that did not get completed. Instead, we need the purpose of this retrospective is to make these kind of lesson learned conclusions and to help making continuous process improvements, right, with the next sprint. And the two main questions which should be asked in the retrospective is what went well during the sprint, because if we did something well, if we were good at something, that should be acknowledged. And we should understand, okay, this is what we did well, we should do this again, right? So if the communication was good, we should keep this level of communication. If teamwork was good, we should do it. If, let's say, Saturday lunch spent with the team instead of your families helped you, do it again if you can. You know, different kind of things may help you. So this is the open meeting. Everyone talks their minds, and you should be able to communicate what you liked about the sprint. You will also have your chance to say what did not go very well in the sprint and what can be improved in the next sprint. So this is the place and time to tell, yeah, I did not like how we did that. I think we could improve and this way. And again, do not try to play blame game. It's not helpful in general, and it's not helpful in the Scrum environment or software development environment. Instead, just think about, analyze, and try to propose a solution. You can, of course, why not complain, 3 hours long, but instead try to see how these things can be improved. If you cannot find the solution, you know, on your own, then this is the team should help you. And usually, the sprint retrospective is a very open and friendly discussion across all team members, where you try to understand how you can improve things that went wrong in the previous sprint, so the next sprint is more successful, right? And again, you should limit yourself. The team should limit itself to 3 hours limit. Otherwise, you know, the complaining part may take too long. And actually, Scrum Master is the guy who manages the time, because this time is your sprint time, right? These 3 hours is part of your sprint. If you only have 1 week, for example, which is 80 hours, I mean, these 3 hours is too much. If you have four weeks of sprint, you can accommodate 3 hours meeting. If it is only 1 week, you do not need 3 hours. You may be done in half an hour, because it's only 1 week. Everyone remembers what happened, you know, during this week. So it's not like you have to spend 3 hours. If you can be done earlier, good. If not, try to finish this meeting in 3 hours. To help us understand the progress and to build the Burndown chart, Scrum methodology assumes the team will have daily meetings. And those meetings are called stand-ups. They are held daily, same location, same time. It can be 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m. There is no standards. The time should be convenient for all the team members. You may have team members who come to the office early and leave early. Some may come late and leave late. Try to find a spot where everyone can be there physically, collocated, and all team members should be present in that meeting, but only the core role speaks. The core roles may change, you know, during the sprint. So let's say today, when you start your sprint, most of the speeches are done by the product owner, because he would tell you what the features are. Maybe you have some questions on how to develop or how to test. And then as we move forward, the product owner, unless he has some updates, may not have too much to say, but then the key, you know, speakers on those daily stand-ups would be the developers and testers. So we need to track the progress on how much development work is done, how much testing work is done. And the meeting, this meeting, daily meeting, is time boxed to 15 minutes. And basically, if you have, and each team member will be asked these 3 questions. What is your progress since yesterday? Right? So you should be able to track yourself on a daily basis. And what are your plans for today? And are you blocked on something? And again, these are very, you know, quick questions. And if you have only 5 people in a team, and you have 15 minutes, right? Two people are Scrum Master and the product owner. If they don't have too much to say, you have 2 developers, 1 tester, and you have 15 minutes. Each person has 5 minutes to talk. So 5 minutes is enough to briefly answer those questions. And of course, if you are blocked on something and you need to resolve that problem, that does not need to be discussed in this daily stand-up. You can take it offline with the Scrum Master and find the solution and unblock other people. They are not blocked. You are blocked, you will find your solution with the Scrum Master, but the other people will go back to their workspaces and continue working. And Scrum Master is supposed to resolve the impediments and remove the obstacles. And yeah, the resolution should occur outside of the daily Scrum itself, because otherwise your Scrum meetings might take like hours and hours. And you don't have that luxury when you have only 1 week, 2 weeks, or 4 weeks to develop, to deliver your increment of the product. Definition of done, or DoD, is another Scrum term that you guys should know. And what it means that your criteria of done should be defined before you start your sprint. So basically, once you have the sprint backlog defined, for each feature that you take into the sprint, you should define what done means for this particular feature. For example, if it is a particular web form, what considered to be done for this form? It should be implemented when you navigate to this URL. It should have all the UI controls implemented and functional. It should pass all your positive tests, and it should pass, for example, most of your negative tests, like empty fields should not accept, and boundary conditions should be in place. This is your definition of done. And again, there are no standards on what are the definitions of the done criteria for your project, because it is individual for each sprint team and for each project, but all team members should agree to this definition of done. And once you start the sprint, you cannot change this definition, because what people tend to do as the team moves towards the end of the sprint, they realize, oops, we do not have time to develop all the fields. Like, let's say we are supposed to develop 20 text fields and we only develop 10. Can we change the definition of done and pretend we did the web form? You should not do this. This is not how Scrum is run. If you did not develop all the 20 fields and only delivered 10, your sprint fails. You will do better planning in your next sprint. But you should not change the definition of done mid-flight. And the definitions, the criteria for the done should be concrete and measurable. And for each product, sprint backlog item, the team should define the deliverables. And the term that people use in Scrum, sashimi, means it is a report that something is done. So when you look, the agile progress is frequently tracked through the post-its. For example, this is the items that we did already is our sashimi. So that means these items are done, right?
It's universal word, or you can
It's typical for Scrum. It's typical for Scrum, just the slang that people use, sashimi. And again, sprint results. If at the end of your sprint you have a demo and you analyze the results of your sprint and your criteria of done is not met, it is not done. There are no half-done results, right? This is not the picture how it should look in your website. It is either done or not done. This one is not done, it's half done. So the result like this is not considered to be finished. There are no partially done sprints. Either you completed everything that you've planned for, right? And then your sprint succeeded, or you didn't complete everything that you planned for, and then your sprint failed. If your sprint succeeded, you can go out and celebrate, right? If your sprint failed, what should you do? What can you do? you first of all you hold the sprint review retrospective analysis, right, meeting. So you analyze what went wrong. Maybe you overestimate or underestimated the effort, or overestimated your team's capacity to deliver. Or maybe there was some, the hardware didn't work properly and there was a power outage for 2 days, right? The lightning struck the building and nobody could do anything and stuff. I mean, there are different reasons for why you could not meet the criteria of done. So you need to analyze the reasons. Of course, if it was weather or the hardware not, getting it in time. So if you already have your hardware and you do not expect, the shower season or rain season to start very soon, then those reasons, those obstacles you will not have in your next sprint. Then you should probably keep your estimates and planning the way you did in the first sprint. However, if you see that you underestimated, then you should plan more reasonably, right? You should be more careful in your estimates. And
revised sprint then?
okay, so if your sprint succeeded, we are happy, right? If your sprint failed, good question. Can you do a revised sprint? Not really. Your sprint failed. Sprint is an instance of your development. It's gone. You cannot enter the same sprint again. Because what happens, let's say if for your sprint you had, oops, okay. The sprint is your time box. And time box, let's say, is 4 weeks. We start on June 1st. We should be done on June 29th, roughly, right? And during this period, you should do features. Okay, let me take. You should do features 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? So at the end, on June 29th, you had a demo, and collectively the team, you realized that you did this, and you did this, and you kind of did this, but it was not fully implemented, and you didn't have time to do this. So what happens? Let's say half of the feature got implemented, and half did not get implemented, right? So some of the subtasks of this feature were done, but some were not. So what happens? This is the success of your sprint. Your overall sprint failed, right? Because you did not complete everything you wanted to complete. So, but you completed at least this much. So what happens? Your sprint fails. You start planning for the next sprint. And when you start planning for the next sprint, you could take these remaining pieces, right? And start your next sprint from those pieces. But remember that you have the product backlog outlined by the product owner. So features, and let's say this is your product log. So features that did not, or sub-features that did not get implemented in the sprint, they do not automatically go to the next sprint. Instead, they go back to the product log. What happens then? The product owner, who knows the market, would need to reprioritize all the features all over again, because this exercise is done in the beginning of each and every iteration, in the beginning of each and every sprint. It may happen that by this time, these features used to matter a lot. It was the priority one, highest priority features. But now, 4 weeks later, let's say something changed and the market was already taken, or we developed something else. So there is some other product released by us or competitors. So these features do not they're no longer of that highest priority. Instead, we have a couple of more features that have higher priority. So what happens then for your next sprint, which will be July 1st, for example, to July 29th, You do not necessarily take these two. The product owner may ask you to do this, and maybe this, and maybe still finish this. But it all depends on overall priorities. Does it answer your question? What to do with the failed sprint? Yeah, you just replan all over again, and you start fresh.
Are things ever added to the product log?
Yes, this product log may change all the time.
That's variable.
Yeah, it's a variable. So, and the whole purpose of Agile is that you develop in sprints. And if something adds up to the list, right, for example, we are done with 2 sprints and we were thinking, yeah, we have only 1 sprint to go and we would be done with the product. And then the product owner comes and says, you know what, we also need to do this and this. Can you guys please finish? Your answer can be, yes, we can accommodate. You would need to validate the effort it takes to develop these 2 features. Or you can say, yes, we can, but we would need 1 more sprint. And that's fine. And once you're done with all the features, your product is considered completed. So you will not have any more sprints for this product, but you will start another one, hopefully, right? Unless your product is so successful, you can sell it well, and you will be purchased by some other company and get rich and retire. So you don't have to do any more sprints. It all depends on how things go with your product. So any questions, guys, on how sprints are run and why we do them, and what each team member is supposed to do? No. Okay. A couple of things to reiterate. Sometimes you may need to terminate sprints abnormally, and we went through some Burndown charts, and I mentioned that the product owner can cancel a sprint if necessary, based on the input from the team. For example, if the technology that was chosen did not work well, or the market changed, right? We don't need this set of features any longer. So this can be, the sprint can be terminated. And management may wish to cancel a sprint if external circumstances negate the value of the sprint goal. There may be major shift in the company management and they decide not to develop this line of product any longer for whatever reason, right? They decided to explore a different market, and then they may just cancel this project. And as I mentioned, if the sprint is abnormally terminated, the next step is to conduct a new sprint planning meeting and move forward. And of course, you need to understand the reasons for the termination of the previous sprint. So if you look inside the sprint, the development and testing, of course, is done by the delivery team, which consists of development and QA, sometimes business analysts, and team does go through the daily Scrum meetings to report progress and report any blockages or impediments. Product owner monitors the progress and backlog priorities, and Scrum Master facilitates everything else. And believe me, with Scrum, your days are busy. And what happens frequently, because Scrum is all about teamwork, and once development is done with development effort, developers frequently help testers to test what has been developed. If you have any coding skills, if you can help development with coding, especially if this is HTML forms, if this is web-based application, you are welcome to help, providing the development agrees to your help. So what in Scrum teams, the division of responsibilities between developers and testers may be not that strict as in the traditional development. So the borderline between, I'm developer, I only develop, I never test, that thing is gone in Scrum, in Agile development. Once development is done with the development tasks, they would go and help testers with testing tasks, and vice versa. If during development, developers realized, oh, we need this hardware, we need these cables and that cables, if Scrum Master is not available for any reason, you will not sit back on your hands. You will borrow some money from the management, run to Fry's Electronics, get the cables, and bring it back to development. So Scrum, as any Agile, is all about teamwork. So basically, each team member does whatever is needed. I can give you an example. I was working on a startup, and the application we were working on was the online payroll application. So we did not have, we didn't know it was called Agile at that time. That was like 6 years ago. But it was kind of agile because it was very time boxed, and we had, I think bi-monthly kind of cycles. And we did not have Scrum Master role defined. We did not have the product owner. We had a CEO who was running all across, the globe with some ideas in his head and throwing the features, to us. But what we did have, we had a very good development team, and we had 2 testers, myself and my boss. And whenever we were stuck on something, unless development could help us, it was on our own, to go and find, the help that's needed. And at some point when development got stuck, and we realized that unless we help them, they will not accomplish their deliverables by the time where we needed it. So we stepped in, and we actually called all the tax agencies in each and every state, because in online payroll calculation system, you need to know the taxation rules for each and every state, each and every county. That's a nightmare, I can tell you. I went through this exercise. I was exhausted at the end because, realistically, the people who do taxation, who verify your taxes, or, the IRS guy, IRS tax, calculation is much simpler than the state-based calculations, because each state has its own regulations. Some states are simple, but some states, oh boy, they're so complex. And we would call those agencies, local agencies, like some counties and some cities had very sophisticated local tax calculations rules. If nobody is there to find that for development, if development does it, they will be late with their tasks, right? So then QA would step in and call the agencies. That's what we did. And pull the necessary documents, and we would find the websites with the taxation rules and provide all this information to development so they can develop. In a kind of exchange, when the code was ready, they helped us with testing effort. So this is the true teamwork, and this is what many of agile teams do, and this is what is traditionally being done in Scrum development. So people help each other, of course, you should still keep your integrity as testers. You should not compromise on the quality. If your development is your body, if you drink coffee every time, like at 6 a.m. in the morning, it doesn't mean you should not validate your body's work, right? Please wear QA hats, and still keep the usability of the product in mind and functionality of the product in mind. You should still do your job, but please help others whenever you can. And other people will help you as well. This is how sprint can look at a glance. So usually people bucketize. This is the product backlog, which is called to do, right? This is the list of all the items to do, and some tasks are split into subtasks, and people put their notes. If there is something they want to mention, they just go and post it on the board. Doing this column is your current sprint. This is what you are doing in this sprint, and this is what is done. This is your sashimi, kind of. And yeah, so all the items which are completed and accomplished go here. And usually until the project is done, until you are done with all your features, this board is kept intact. So you can go to this board and check the status at any point. You can see what was already developed, and usually they put people names and the effort it took, so you can reasonably plan your next iterations. And this is the daily stand-up, I guess, in Scrum meetings. So, this is a legitimate question. So basically, if you have multiple teams, right, and you're doing multiple Scrums in different teams, what people do, they call it sometimes Scrum of Scrums. So basically, you have each team go through its own set of iterations or sprints, right? So you have Scrum process applied to this particular set of features. And remember the picture that I drew in the beginning? So you would have, okay, let me see. Let's say we had 4 teams, right? So this team was developing this set of features, and this team would develop this set of features, and this team would develop this, and this team would develop something else. So at the end, we all should integrate, right? This is what didn't happen because we did not have time, because of course I didn't plan for it, right? I'm to blame. But anyway, so at some point, all these, if this is one product, just different feature sets, should integrate. And this is where all the parts and pieces come together. But Scrum Masters at each and every given point of time, they should coordinate horizontally. And there is usually, there may be one master guy who owns all this project. And he may run across all the teams and coordinate, but more frequently he would have daily meetings with Scrum Masters only to see how the projects are doing, how individual features are doing, and that will make everyone's lives easier. Instead of one person chasing like 36 people around, right? This is what we have in this room. So let's analyze our sprint. Question number 1, did we make the sprint?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
With overtime.
With overtime.
Yeah.
No, guys, of course, this is fun exercise, and I hope this is learning exercise for you also. In my opinion, we did not make the sprint.
90% completed.
It's not done.
You are either done or not done,
Okay,
right?
so we can start in next sprint.
Yeah, so we can start next sprint, and
Finished.
yeah. And one Scrum, by the way, was more or less, close to completion, right? So there was a couple of yeah. So what went well during sprint?
Teamwork.
Teamwork,
Communication.
communication. What
Our
else?
Scrum manager left
Design.
us.
And you think this is an advantage for your team? Yeah. So what else went well?
Drawing.
Drawing, right? You had a chance to exercise your skills. And by the way, during sprints and during Scrum and Agile development, you do have more chances to develop yourself. On a personal aspect of your work, right? You do have chances to develop qualities in you that you probably never suspected you had, right? So you may pick up some of the white box testing skills if you need to look at the code and fix the HTML errors, for example. Or you may be able to move more into Scrum Master and then project management role. You never know where you will find your opportunities, but Scrum does prompt you to develop personal qualities in you. What went not so well? Where did we? What?
Time management.
Time management sucked. Okay, what else?
Communication.
Communication was not clear. Okay.
Graphics design.
Graphics design suffered. Okay.
Functionality.
Yeah. Yeah. Functionality was not well defined.
Features were not well.
Features were not well defined. We did not have time to plan for features, right? And of course, we did not plan for effort, right? Because if you planned for effort, if I asked you guys to project your effort, we would spend like extra 10 minutes, which we do not have in today's class. This is how sprint review and sprint retrospective meetings usually go. So people do say what they liked first, right? You should start with the positive always. And then you look at what went wrong, and then you analyze and say, okay, in the next sprint, we should do this and this and that, and we should not do this and this and that. And then you try to apply what you've concluded, right? Few things to mention to you guys. As I told you, Scrum is not always successful. There may be cases where the Agile development and Scrum in particular may fail. So, and based on industry's experience, if your team is not committed enough, or if your team is not reliable, right? If you cannot trust your people, if people say I will do it and they never do it, then you cannot be successful with Scrum. If you provide incorrect time and work estimates, you cannot be very successful with your Scrum development because your sprints will always be off. If you cannot get everyone on planning and daily meetings, you're likely to fail. You have to track your progress on a daily basis. And talking about tracking, I have a confession to make to you guys. I miscalculated the work effort in the beginning, so it was not 51 work units, as was pointed out. It was 61 work units, which means, and then I recalculated everything. So ignore the red line. Green line is our Burndown chart, right? So we started with 61, and this is how it went. So the time is now 10:50, and we are done with the, we're still in the process of limitations. We did the exercise, which is 25. We did the overview, and we did the demo. We are down to only 2 units of work, right? Which means at 10:50, we are at 2 units of work. Will we make the sprint as a team? I hope so. No, by 11, we still have 10 minutes left, right? And 2 units of work. Yeah. So, so the green line is our actual Burndown chart. So, continuing to why Scrums can fail if people provide you wrong estimates, then yes, you cannot plan your sprints accurately and precisely. You can have, yes, you can have bad Scrum Masters or product owners. And if you have those, what should you do?
Sack them.
Yeah, you can and you should replace these people. It doesn't mean those people can no longer contribute. It doesn't mean you should fire them. You may find that some people who wanted to be Scrum Masters are actually very good product owners, or vice versa, right? Your product owner has leadership capabilities. He can be, Scrum Master, but he does or she does not know the market very well. So you can, delegate this person to be a Scrum Master in the next sprint. You can find some developers, so QA people, worker bees, to be very good Scrum Masters. Leadership, because if a person has leadership qualities, he or she may lead naturally, right? Those are natural Scrum Masters. Or you can, ask those people to leave the team, because if the person who is in your team cannot be a Scrum Master, cannot be the product owner, cannot develop, and cannot test, why do you need this person, right? So that's why these teams are self-formed. If collectively the group of people does not feel, well about a particular person, nothing personal. This person, she or he, can perfectly do well in some other group, or maybe in some other project. The person may work fine in the large group, in the traditional development. It just, this person may not be fit for your team. And there is nothing wrong about this. This is just how life goes and how agile development goes. If team does not have enough authority and decision-making skills, you will not succeed with Scrum. In Scrum, you have to be fast, right? Because all sprints go like this 45 minutes exercise. Like 4 weeks, you should be done. 4 weeks, you should be done. And this will not be the paper project. It will be the real website that you need to develop and deliver and test and make sure the quality is adequate. And some teams cannot learn from the past mistakes, and they go into a state of denial. And let's say one sprint failed because we estimated the effort, and we start the next sprint with the same, overestimated, numbers, and we fail it again. And we do not want to recognize that was the, misplanned, estimates. We continue doing the same thing over and over again, and then the sprints will continue to fail. If this is happening, then this team should not do agile. It should not do sprints. It's probably, this team probably, there are choices. This team can choose to do the traditional development, or they may just change the Scrum Master and see if that makes any difference, right? Because there should be someone who will lead the analysis, the retrospective of the sprint, to see how we can improve and eventually, go into the sprint schedule. And as you can understand probably from the exercise, if you have large teams of people, it's very challenging to do Scrum, because especially if your teams are geographically distributed, right? So see, we spent 45 minutes, you guys did not finish everything you wanted to do, and you were sitting next to each other. Imagine you need to do a real project in real life, and as I mentioned, for each answer to your question, you need to wait for a day or two, at least overnight, so people on the other end of the globe could respond to your requests. So it is very challenging, and people find it not working well if you have distributed teams, even though, as I mentioned, there may be exceptions. If you're willing to sacrifice your schedule and change and adjust your schedule respectively, you can still do successful Scrum. Large teams and huge features sometimes cannot be broken down just because of the feature complexity. So if the project is complex, you may try splitting it into several, Scrum groups and see if you can do this model. But sometimes logically, you cannot split the code. It's risky. The parts need to be integrated early, and then you should develop everything simultaneously. And if you need 20 developers to develop a feature, you cannot do Scrum. In our company, we are moving into Agile development direction. But we have, for example, products where the development team is 200 people and the test team is like 150 people. So it is not always easy to, you cannot have 11 Scrum teams, right? Or even more. It's like 20-something Scrum teams. It just doesn't work. You spend too much time in coordinating. So there are some projects where by the project nature, you cannot do Agile and you have to follow with the traditional development methodology. And another point, some applications require you to keep audit trail on everything. If you develop applications in the military field or medical or biomedical or pharmaceutical research, this is where you cannot not have documentation. You have to have documentation. You have to have the process in place. Because the customers that use your application will be audited most likely by FDA for medical devices, by military, by government for the military stuff, right? So you cannot just develop, Agile. You have to have paper trail for everything you are doing. So there are some limitations from that side as well. So the conclusion for today's class is that Scrum is a doable and viable form of software development. And lately, in the last few years, I see more and more companies doing Agile just because of its benefits of incrementally delivering the potentially shippable product. It is very convenient. Doing Scrum does not require special knowledge, right? You just need to have a good teamwork. And this can be found or developed within the team. So you do not have to go through any official or special training. And following Scrum helps you to produce stable product increments in short periods of time. And everyone in the team is accountable for the success or failure. And last in the sequence, but not the last in the importance, it develops great team spirit. I've been through that, and I can tell you it does work. And it does make you feel good about what you're doing. I'm not saying you should do Agile only for that. But despite of all the challenges of Agile, it does have its benefits, and product-wise and feature-wise and market-wise, business-wise, plus on the personal front, it helps you develop very good team spirit. Any questions, guys, on what we've covered? Okay, I have one more thing to tell you. So as you guys have been a very good team to me. So as a small token of my appreciation to you, before you leave, please take one chocolate because it's 11 p.m. and even 11:02. Oh, no, exactly 11. Okay. And you've been very patient with me. Thank you so much. I hope you will remember what Agile is, what Scrum is. And I wish you best of luck on the interviews. I highly recommend that you guys Google for Agile development methodology. Google for Scrum. Wikipedia has a very good and detailed explanation of what Scrum is. In case, because I have your emails, right? So I will email you the presentation. So, but in case you want more information, you can always Google, and you have endless resources on the internet. Just don't get confused because like Scrum uses one terminology. Lean development uses a little different terminology. It is all about time boxing, delivering potentially shippable product in short increments, and having controlled quality process in shorter increments. That's what Agile is about.